To focus more on the situation in the U.S. now with Scott Lucas, a U.S. politics expert who joins me from Dublin. Scott, let's get back to Kamala Harris's potential as a candidate. For you, is it a done deal?
Yes, I think it is. E- Even though Joe Biden only stepped aside yesterday, I think there had been days of preparation. Harris was getting a much higher profile with key speeches. And then, as soon as Biden stepped aside, he endorsed Harris, and so did other Democrats. Significantly, not just Democrats who are her supporters, but also those who have been her critics, such as Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez from the progressive wing of the party. And then I think the real telltale sign was that other potential challengers for this nomination, such as Governor Gretchen Whitmer of Michigan and Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, stood aside and said, we're not going to contest this. The Democratic convention on the 19th of August still has to formally confirm Harris as the candidate, but I think this is going to be more of a confirmation rather than a contest in Chicago.
Right. So then that means the real question now will be how she's going to organize her campaign. And crucially, who is she going to pick to be her vice president? So how do you see that playing out?
I think you're talking about a white male to balance the ticket in terms of gender and race, but there's no shortage of talent that the Democrats and Kamala Harris could go for. Uh, at the governor's level, you could talk about Governor Roy Cooper of North Carolina, Governor Josh Shapiro of Pennsylvania, which of course is a key swing state, Governor J.B. Pritzker of Illinois, uh, long established as a very influential Democratic, uh, basically, able to maneuver and to arrange things. And then at the level of senator, you could talk about Senator Sherrod Brown of Ohio, but also possibly Senator Mark Kelly, the former astronaut, the husband of Senator Gabby Giffords, who had to leave office after being seriously wounded by gunfire more than a decade ago. All of these, I think, are candidates who have visibility, who have energy, and who I think could balance a ticket which will be much younger and much more dynamic, at least than the Republican nominee, Donald Trump.
Indeed. Some Democrats, though, are concerned that over the past 4 years, we haven't really seen that much of Vice President Harris. She hasn't made a huge impact. And also, some say she isn't hugely popular. I mean, are those criticisms fair?
Well, let's be blunt. Once Joe Biden decided to go for a second term, and he was only going to be a one-term president, the Biden team hid Kamala Harris, and they only let her out, as it were, to take on poison chalices, such as making an appearance at the border amidst the heated immigration issue. But now that Biden has stepped aside, now she has that space to establish her profile, to establish her policies, to establish her record in the administration and its achievements. And contrary to the narrative put out by the Trumpists that she has low popularity ratings, she runs neck and neck with Trump in the polls already. If
Mm,
this campaign focuses on issues rather than spectacle, I think she gets a further boost.
indeed. So, for you, what are going to be the biggest issues where she can win? Is it going to be on things like abortion?
I think women's right and abortion rights are going to be one of the key issues. Two-thirds of Americans support the right to choose for women. A lot of those are, of course, women who happen to be swing voters in key states. I think it's also an issue of great interest to younger voters. I think Harris's record in terms of being the first Black president, first woman president, first Asian American president stands as well in terms of issues that are of interest to America's minorities. I think she can point to the Biden administration's accomplishments on the economy. I think she can talk about steadiness in foreign policy, and then this big advantage. She's a former prosecutor. So this sets up the narrative of a prosecutor running against a convicted felon who tried to hold office illegally in 2021 with what effectively was an attempted coup. That's a pretty powerful narrative.
Indeed, and it'll be interesting in the optics there if ever it comes to her being the candidate and the two of them with Donald Trump begin to debate. Where will the Republicans attack her? What's her Achilles heel?
They've already started. Donald Trump will attack with character insults. He's already going to try to stick the nickname on her, Laughing Kamala, as if her laugh is offensive. Not sure that'll matter to many voters, but there you go. He is already being misogynist in his attacks on her. Uh, the risk there is that that line of attack could alienate voters who are undecided, especially women voters. I think the Trump campaign probably is on better ground if they go this way in terms of going with the issues of the economy and immigration quite often putting out misinformation. The United States is actually much better economically than it was 4 years ago, but trying to run the line to Americans, do you feel like you're better off? And of course, they'll run the false line that America is being invaded by millions of immigrants and hope that that fear factor scares people. But let me just add this: Donald Trump was able to bully Hillary Clinton in 2016. He actually stalked her against a debate stage. Donald Trump won't be able to bully Kamala Harris.
Mm. Just a final word on JD Vance, Donald Trump's vice presidential candidate. He's already now calling for Biden to resign after Biden said he was not going to be reelected. Vance saying Biden's not fit to run, not fit to serve. I mean, what are your thoughts on that? Are there any grounds to call for Biden's resignation at this point before the end of his term?
No, because even though Joe Biden, struggled for words in public, almost froze on that debate stage, he's been competent, more than competent, at running an administration which can boast probably the most important domestic achievement since the 1960s. There's no evidence he can't do that job. In fact, he's been quite effective, for example, at the NATO summit, in terms of talking to allies beyond the headline slips, like calling President Zelensky President Putin. Let's be honest here. JD Vance is the Trump campaign's attack dog. He's loud, he's vociferous, he's there to get clickbait headlines. But I think they made a mistake because they've got two white guys at the top of the ticket who are a lot like each other. If the Trump campaign had gone for a woman as the vice presidential candidate, that's a much different dynamic when they face the person who could be America's first Black woman president.
All right, Scott, thanks for that. Scott Lucas there speaking to me from Dublin. Thanks so much.